Hey, I didn't know people would actually show up. Is everyone else just up for breakfast and watching videos? Are you guys hearing audio at all, or am I too quiet, or? Hey, John. How's everyone doing this morning, if you can hear me? Otherwise, if you can't hear me, don't answer. Alright, thanks John. Glad to hear that the volume's actually working. This was kind of a, like, hey, I just found this old camera sitting in my bucket of old electronics. Why don't I see if I can do a live stream with it? Alright, so the story behind this is basically just the other day my family and I were running down the road to get some ice cream. I saw someone across the ice cream place had a tree down, so I figured let's see if I can go grab some blanks from them, or grab some logs from them and make some blanks. So I did that Thursday, and got to make this bowl here for them before Sunday. That's when I told them I'd have it ready. So that's why we're making a bowl today. So we'll see how this goes. Now, you watched me make bowls before, you know I've been kind of doing Lyle Jamieson's way of basically try to get the bowl or the blank balanced between centers, and that will allow me to turn up the speed right away without having to worry about getting that chunk of really slow turning when you first start out. I think I'm going to do a live edge bowl with this. So I'm actually going to turn this around. We'll see if it stays on. The wood's pretty wet, which means that it's likely the edge is just going to rip right off, or the bark is going to rip right off. But I like live edge bowls, so hopefully the people that I'm making it for like them too. Now when I'm doing the balancing here, I'm trying to make sure that the bark edge is about even, because the bowl's basically going to wind up elliptical shaped, or not elliptical, I guess, not quite egg shaped, but whatever that is, oval, there we go. And each point is going to come up as high as the outer, or the bark edge is going to come up. We want it to be even, so besides balance, I'm also trying to make sure I get the outer edge, or the bark edge, pretty even. Which, go up a hair. So this part's not terribly interesting. Alright, I'm not quite balanced. Whoa, I just put it way off balance. Alright, we're not too bad for balance right now. We're going to lock this down and see how we do. Right now I'm just kind of driving the softer wood into the spur center. Make sure that it is locked in nice and tight there. Spins freely. Alright. That's the corner that's touching. There we go. I'm going to wipe off the sawdust from this. I'll be right back. There we go. pieces of bark flying out there. So Jimmy, I know you're relatively new to turning, I think, from what I've seen on your channel. You can see that I started out around 1200, 1500 RPM on this because the bowl blank is actually balanced. That way I'm not getting a lot of vibration in it. So that's kind of an advantage of instead of just putting a faceplate on it, where the faceplate isn't likely to get that balance, so you're going to have to go slower speeds when you start turning. But it's kind of a nice advantage of doing it this way. Also, when you're doing it between centers, even if I was balanced but it was off center for the grain, I'm able to, in the future, future being a few minutes from now, is I can adjust my centers to be able to keep that grain going down the center of the bowl, assuming that's what my goal is, I guess. If I wanted the grain to be off center for some reason, I could also do that. Alright, so I can tell I'm off center by seeing that I've already got bark on this side, or I already have wood, and I'm still doing bark over here. But if I sight down the center of this, it's still not looking too bad. So I'm not going to adjust that until I actually see how much off I am on the ends here. Because right now I'm still really cleanly vertical here, and I like that. So that's what I like more than the grain being absolutely perfect. With walnut, you want to do something that has like a heartwood and sapwood. You want to try to keep that balance on the bowl, but it's not as important with this type of bowl where maple is all pretty light colored and pretty even colored. Well, this does seem to have a little bit of darkness here, but I'm pretty sure by the time I get to the foot, that'll all be turned off, or it'll just be a sliver down that center. Not sure why there seems to be like a dark heartwood in this maple though. quite all the way around. I'm starting to, the weight of this has changed a little bit. This end here is, so like if I put it right here, there's kind of a V going this way, this end being wide. So what I'm going to do, instead of just turning it round right now, even though I have a little bit more to go, I'm going to flatten this face. And when I flatten this face, what I'm going to do is just do push cuts into the end until I'm pushing all the way that I'm just taking a hair off of this. That'll maintain as much of the blank as possible for actually making the bowl out of. So you can probably hear the chatter going. At some point it turns into a kind of a hiss or a whisper. That means I'm actually below the surface of that far side, if you can remember how it was lower. So that's what I'm looking for when I'm doing these push cuts. One more thing about these push cuts in is I'm following the bevel of the tip against the wall. So the wall, it's hitting, and then it has the open spot, hitting, open spot, but I'm going straight in like this rather than just kind of willy-nilly pushing into there. So now, as I approach the center, I'm not just going flat in. I'm actually making this bevel ride at a little bit of an angle away from the center of the bowl. What that's going to do is allow me to go slightly deeper. I'm looking for a concave surface right here. Even though this is the bottom of the bowl, I want it to be able to mount on the glue block nice and evenly. Or at least only have the ring or the outer rim of the glue block touching the bowl blank. Because if it's touching in the center, it means it could wobble, and that means I won't get a good glue surface. So, right there you can see, you probably can't see it without any depth perception there, but there is a little bit of a hollow in there. That will allow me to have the glue block, I'll turn a rim on it, and then it'll just be the rim that's glued onto here. And I'll have to knock off the support section here with a chisel, but you'll see that in a few minutes here. We're pretty close to reversing this and putting it on the glue block. Glue bar mean? Alright, I don't know what the glue bar means, but we'll keep going. Alright, I have just a hair of this part left, but I can reverse it right now, I think, because the glue block's not going to be there and the bowl is actually going to curve this direction. So why don't we get the glue block. I'll be off frame for a few minutes here while I find the glue and all that stuff. Ready. You can see how much I jammed that into the softer wood at the bark side. That it's just sticking onto that spur center there. Okay, I am going to get rid of the tailstock. When you're using a glue block, you don't want to use the tailstock because any out of centerness will wind up actually knocking the blank off of the glue block. The reason this glue block works is because using a CA glue, which basically it will shear, but it won't, it's not rubbery like a wood glue. And when you wind up having that shearing action, we depend on that later when we release the bowl from the glue block. But if so we want it to be a brittle but strong force that's holding it on there. Now I'm going through kind of a knot here. That's why that's not breaking off cleanly. But maybe that knot will add some character to the bowl, or maybe it'll make it just crack and shatter when we're done. We'll see what happens. Hey Michael, nice to see you on here too. Alright, I gotta make sure this is all removed in the center so it's below the surface of where the glue block is gonna touch. So otherwise, again, I can get that rocking effect, and that means we won't have a good glue scheme. Alright, let's prepare the glue block real quick. There we go. Move the spur center. Now, as I was saying earlier, the glue block, I want to put a rim on the edge of it. So I'm going to hollow a little bit towards the center, and that'll leave a nice rim. I mean, maybe like a 3/8 or 3/16 of an inch or something. You don't want it to be terribly thick, that rim, but you do want enough that the CA glue will grip onto it nice and tight. Got some tear out there. I think I want to clean that up a touch. There we go, that's nice. Alright, so basically through the center of this glue block there is a little hole that's drilled all the way through. What that will allow me to do is put this tool, which is basically a glorified coat hanger, right through it. I'm going to look for what the center is. Actually, I need a pencil. Alright, with the pencil, I'm going to outline this thing where I think it's centered. And a little couple rough edges allows me to get a good feel where the center actually is. I'm going to make a pencil line around it and just bang this in a couple times so I've got my center spot that I can find again. We're going to, now this is thick CA glue. Use thick, don't try to use medium or thin. Just won't work as well. I'm following the inside of the pencil line. Just one bead all the way along. Put the cover on the CA glue, pull out the activator, and spray away from your CA glue. Seems pretty obvious, but occasionally you forget. And I'm just going to press that down for a few seconds. Hit it with some more CA or activator. And we'll call that good, and by the time I get all this stuff put away, it will be ready to go. One of the questions I had for Lyle when I first, I saw Lyle's video that said to use this method for doing the bowls. One of the questions I had is, how long will this glue block hold? Because I, one time, did a wet bowl like I'm doing today, and by the next morning when I put it on the lathe, it fell right off. Well, the answer is don't let it go overnight, especially on wet wood, because what's going to happen is the wood is going to warp a little, and that means you're going to lose your surface that's actually glued. And, well, that can be rather catastrophic because it'll fly off the lathe. Alright, so you can see I didn't get that perfectly centered. It is turning. So I'm going to turn the lathe speed down. Always turn the lathe speed all the way down when you first put it on the glue block. You don't want to find out that you didn't have a good seal by cranking it right up to 1200 or 1500 RPM, unless you like throwing chunks of wood through your walls. Not that I've done that yet. They've all bounced off of the drywall. Yes, Michael, you're absolutely right. Put away means put it on the table saw. So you can see the hammer and chisel. I actually did put the CA glue away, but sorry for the motion sickness inducing stuff there. Alright, I think I'll go down so we get the camera out, or the light out of the frame. There we go. But the good news is we do actually need the hammer and chisel later anyway when we free the blank from the or free the bowl from the glue block. Alright, make sure that spins. It does. Awesome. Alright, I'm going to go put a fresh edge on this. I'll be right back. Alright, that's one thing about sharpening, especially with the regular high-speed steel tools. You do want to make sure that you sharpen regularly. A clean edge is always going to give you a cleaner cut. You aren't going to get as much tear out, and overall it's just more enjoyable to use. Tool steel isn't terribly expensive. I think the actual tool here we've had for about a year now, and even at the rate that we turn bowls, I would guess we have another 4 years left on this tool. So $100 for 4 years, pretty cheap. So don't skimp on it. Always sharpen, it'll make your life happier. Alright, especially where this is the first time I've turned it on since the glue block was added. I'm starting out a little bit slower. I'm going to climb up in speed until I either get a little bit of wobble just to induce. If it's going to crack the glue right away, I'll know right away. And if it's not going to crack the glue, I'll bring it right back down and then clean up the edge. That should remove the wobble. There's that wobble. It's shaking the lathe a little bit, so I'm going to bring it right back down. That was around 750. So I'm 600. I'll clean up the edge to even it out, and the wobble should be gone. We'll be able to go back up to 1200, 1500. All right, so we've got that edge cleaned up. I can now take it. You know, take it up a bit faster, and I'm not getting too much wobble. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to start shaping the outer side of the bowl. One of the things that I was doing early on is I'd always try to keep as much bowl as possible. And everyone wants to do that because it's cool to have lots of wood in the bowl, have a nice deep bowl, but it makes it very difficult to get in there and do the work. So I'm probably going to leave myself an inch and a half of wood on the bottom. That's going to be the foot that'll later be turned off. All right. I want to show this to you. It's kind of cool. This is how wet the actual wood is. Let me see if we can get it to a little river of water coming down the flute of the thing. All right. So let me go ahead and bring you around. All right. So the way I'm shaping this right here, as you can see, I'm just doing these large steps. I'm going to keep bringing them up until I'm probably about here for these steps. And that's going to shape the outer part of the bowl. So what my goal is to have a live edge all the way around, and I'm going to bring it in. So all these steps, if you can cut them in half, basically go back to your calculus, cut them in half, cut them in half, cut them in half. And then once I'm down to, I don't know, maybe 1/16 of an inch, I'll be able to switch to a pole cut, which will allow me to clean all those steps up into a nice smooth curve. So you can see we've already kind of got that outside football shape going here. And as I predicted, into that dark heartwood, for whatever reason that this maple has, is actually going to be below the foot of the bowl. So it's not even going to show through. All we're going to have is this nice clear white color, which is kind of nice for a bowl sometimes with the maple. And if we look down the edge here, you can see I don't have a very good clean edge. I'm not happy with this as far as the direction. One of the things I'm going to do is right here at the top, I'm going to wind up trying to bring it so I'm actually cutting the bark at an angle rather than this just straight on direction there. One of the things also when you're cutting bark on a live edge bowl, speed is going to help and a sharp tool. So anytime that you're cutting bark and it's going to be finish cuts or close to the finish, speed up the lathe. Now, one of the disadvantages, or one of the things that makes it difficult, is that here we're going to wind up, once we're hollowing the bowl, as we speed it up, these wings are going to want to pull away. That means you're going to get a non-round cut if you don't keep that speed consistent. And even if you do, as you start cutting down the length of it, it's going to have more or less support from the wood in the center and more pull. So no matter what, you're going to get some flex in this bowl. So that's going to make the inside cuts really difficult to do nice and smooth. So that's one of the difficulties of a live edge bowl like this, where you wind up getting that football shape. Where a normal bowl that's got the rim all the way around, that rim adds a lot of rigidity. But we don't have that rim until we get down here, and really that last few inches of the bowl, they're trivial to do later. So that's one of the reasons I like live edge, is because there's a learning curve to it. But just remember that as this spins faster, it's going to pull out the less wood in that center. So So what I'm going to do now is cut all these steps in half, and also try to do a little bit better shaping so I get a smoother transition here. There's kind of a sharp angle halfway down the bowl. Hey, take it easy, Michael. liking that shape a lot more. I think this will, I mean, it makes a smaller bowl, but I think it makes a better looking bowl overall. So you got a little tear out, that's not a big deal. Still got to do the pull cut. So I'm going to go put a fresh edge on this. Like I said, sharpen early, sharpen often. Then we'll do some pull cuts and clean up all the little ridges on there. Is anyone still listening? Oh, we still got 7. Wow. Alright. So, what I'm going to do is bring this so I've got a better angle. On the outer edge. Now the pull cut basically going to be riding the bevel right at the tip. I'm going to be bringing it out until I feel like I'm too far off. Then I'll adjust the tool rest and we'll bring it again so we're able to just keep that as a nice smooth pull. As Lyle Jamieson defines the pull cut, basically your cutting head is out in front of the tail. So you're going to be down and you're bringing it just right along that edge to smooth out these rough spots of the, which I guess you can't see from that angle. Alright, so the rough spots that we're talking about, let me adjust this again so I can. Thank you, Ragtie. Alright, so if we get in here, you can see there's these little steps. I hope. Yeah, I'm seeing them on mine. Hopefully it comes through on yours. So, alright. So the goal of the pull cut is to remove those steps and give us a nice even edge. You can see the shavings I'm getting are much finer. That's because we're only taking a little bit off rather than that push, or rather than the other way where we're using the wing to remove a ton of material. We really have no wing, we're just using that tip. All right. Now, one of the things that I often do that's wrong is I wind up trying to save too much wood here, and I want this curve to go all the way through the bark. I don't want to have a curve and then the bark just standing straight up on the bowl. So I need to remove a little more wood. You saw me switch to a little bit of almost a push cut to remove more. So my outer shape is changing each time I switch to that push cut instead of a pull cut. That pull cut removes just little whispers. The push cut removes, kind of hogs out material. Alright, I still got more of that vertical in the bark there, which unfortunately I think I'm losing the bark, so I'm going to make one more effort. If I can't do it, then I'll just figure the bark's going to wind up coming off. Although I am way too wet, so I need to get a paper towel to wipe that off. Alright, there, I finally got the bark to kind of have that curve that I was talking about. However, I can see a couple of these pieces are a little loose. Odds are they're all just going to rip off, but we'll leave it on until we know it's got to go. Maybe we'll get lucky. Alright, I'm going to go put a fresh edge on this. It's another thing you'll notice, especially as we get closer to a finished surface, I'm going to sharpen as regularly as possible. Comments? Alright, we're looking good. Alright, so shear scrape, you're actually not cutting on the tip, and you're just flatly laying the wing onto the bowl. What you're doing is you're kind of hugging that bowl and you're letting the burr from the grinder, because the burr is now inward from the grinder. So you're letting that burr kind of pull shavings at an angle. You aren't just flat like a normal, like a heavy bowl scraper. You've got kind of this burr that's basically like a really little bowl gouge that's just slicing those fibers as they come around. So I'm going to work on that. Let me see if I can move you guys around to a better side. All right. So one of the things that's going to help while I do this is that the angle of the tool rest is going to be at about a 45 to 90 to the wood rather than kind of parallel with the wood. I'm going to drop that handle nice and low so I'm able to pull the, see the flute, you can't even see that. You're almost at the same direction that the tool is coming at it. So, and I'm just going to wind up using that just basically at a really low angle, just kind of shear those fibers and slice them off. Now just to show you also, these fibers that are coming off, those things are just like little gossamers. They're spider webs basically. Alright, so I've got a couple spots I still need to get. Overall, that is looking very smooth. Unfortunately, the moisture content's just clogging this right up, so might need to put another edge on it, we'll see. Alright, that is beautiful. And you know what? Looks like I had some sort of tear out there. I'm gonna have to clean that up. That happens sometimes. And I'm going to bring this in closer to the center. So this is going to be going back to some push guts to clean up, and then I will switch again to the pull cut and the shear scrape to clean up that area that I'm going to remove here. I'm going to put a fresh edge on this so I can do the pull cut across here, and then since I'm only using the tip, I'll be able to then use the wing again. Alright. Alright, perfect. Okay, so I'm going to turn you guys around and bring you around to the this side here to do the hollowing of the bowl. I guess I can show you the surface here. Hopefully, again, I don't know. I think I'm only broadcasting at 800 by 600, so you probably can't see the surface, but it is nice and smooth. Let me see if I can get that in focus. Yeah, so alrighty, bring it down. Now, one of the things that kind of tells me I've done a lot of this right so far is that my bark edge is an even distance to a perpendicular line to the lathe bed. That tells me that I actually managed to get the log oriented when I originally put it on here, nice and smoothly. So that means both wings of the bowl will come up to about the same height. So when I hollow, there's a couple things to pay attention to. I need to make sure I've got the tool rest and the tool at the right height, that when I come into the center, I'm not high or low. It'll probably take me a couple adjustments each time, or when I start the bowl here, to be able to get it so I'm right at that center point. Otherwise, I'll get a hollow or a nib, and we don't want either. We want a nice, perfect, smooth bottom to the bowl. The other thing is I'm going to start hollowing and start the shape of the bowl so I'm getting an even wall thickness all the way down until I've probably got about, with this bowl, I'm probably going to go to just under 1 inch of wall thickness evenly for the entire bowl. Then I'm going to wind up for maybe 1 inch of the edge of the bowl. I'm going to push in and bring it down to the final thickness. With this bowl, I think I'm going to go for kind of a decorative bowl, since it's obviously it's not large enough to be a great functional bowl. I will probably do a fairly thin wall thickness, even though that pretty much guarantees the bark's going to go flying. Then I'll do that for about 1 inch. Then I'll come in, I'll do the next inch, until I get to the bottom of the bowl that's supported. Then I'll probably just do a final number of passes to bring that down to the final thickness down on the bottom. And what that allows is, as soon as I've cleared that first inch and made my final cut on it, it's truly final. I'm not coming back. I'll do the next inch. And when I start my cut for that last pass on that second inch, I'm going to wind up coming in. I'm going to find my bevel angle based on the subsequent cuts down to the level. Then I'm going to back off, put down on the right before the that lip will be, and I'll bring my cut right in. That should give me very small transition lines, if any at all, if I do it properly. So, and then I'll follow that pattern the rest of the way. Okay, speed's about 1100 right now. I don't want to go too much faster. Otherwise, again, we add the stresses to the bowl. It'll pull apart. It'll mean I won't get even cuts. Alright, since I've got a nib, I can tell I'm coming in high. So what I want to do is avoid getting my knuckles ripped off, lower this just a hair. Half the distance of the nib that I'm seeing. Now, also watch the tool. I'm not coming in low. I'm coming in even just across. So this, I mean, if you put a level on it, it should be fairly close to level. Okay, I'm still a touch high. All right, still high. Okay, I'm pretty happy with that height. I may make another adjustment as I get closer. Right now I'm just going to do that hollowing out to about 1 inch, a little under 1 inch of wall thickness. Thanks, John. One other thing to consider is while I'm hollowing, I'm going to be cutting into a lot of bark here. That bark is going to dull the tool quickly, so I'll probably, before I get to that final cut, maybe do 2 sharpenings, just because I always want a nice clean cut. So sharp tools are going to give that to you. Dull tools are going to tear out. I know it doesn't matter because we keep removing layer after layer, but still, it's always point of pride maybe to have a nice clean cut. And it feels better. The better it feels, the more fun you're going to have. As you come through here, you're going to see I start out here, I may be moving in fairly quickly, but by the time I'm getting to that center, it's moving a lot slower. So that's because if you clock the outside of the bowl, it's moving relatively quick to the center, which is only moving at 1100 RPM. But the outside, even though it's 1100 RPM, it's got a larger radius that it's moving, so it's going a lot faster. Now you may have seen what I did there. When the flute started getting clogged up with shavings, when I brought or after I cleared them, when I brought it back up, I put the heel of the tool onto the wood gently and brought the cutting edge or the toe down to the wood. Once it started cutting, I could start moving forward again. You don't want to press hard with the heel, you just want to touch the wood. And if you press hard, you're going to bruise the fibers. If you touch gently, you're going to be able to at least find when that bevel angle comes up and meets the wood, and then you'll be able to just start forward again. Alright, so what I'm looking for right now is just to see, do I follow the same thickness? And I think I need to take some more here and a little less in the center to even up this wall thickness, at least until I get down to about here. I'm going to go put an edge on it, and I'll be right back. Any other comments? All right. Now that whole distance down, you're trying to always follow the bevel on the wood. So you want that bevel supported. You don't want to come away and you'll dive down too deep, or if you come off, well, you won't be cutting. So basically follow your bevel the entire or all the way down into the center of the bowl. And that's a little better. I still need I'm heavy on this, or on the outer side. The inside I think is already decent, so I'm going to focus on cutting heavier towards the bark, and then once I'm away from the bark I will start lifting away from the wood, so I'm cutting less all the way down to the center. All right, you're noticing I'm also probably, or you're probably also noticing, I'm shutting the tool off. Oh. Welcome back, Jimmy. So you may notice I'm shutting the tool off regularly. I'm checking that thickness. I'm trying to make sure that when I've got this 1-inch thick wall, it's going to be about 1 inch the whole distance down. Otherwise, it'll make my job harder later when I'm trying to, basically, when I get the calipers out, I'm going to be actually testing the wall thickness for each segment that I'm going down. But here I'm just kind of roughing it. The closer to the even thickness, the less adjustments I have to make later on. So I'm trying to, early on, or sooner than later, get this right. That'll make my life easier. Alright, so in the actual curve here, I'm a little high right about there. So I'm going to, the outside and the towards the center I think are good. But that spot feels high, so I'm going to wind up, when I'm coming down, I'm going to delay in actually pulling back so I clear out more there. And then, once I feel I've cleared enough, I'm going to, again, try to keep that as a smooth transition all the way down to the center. I'm getting a little tear out there. That's mostly probably because the tool needs to be sharpened again, but I'm gonna do two more passes probably, sharpen the tool, do the 1 inch, and we'll see how that goes. That's something I didn't think about until just now, is when you're doing the live edge bowls, where you're going to have a lot of airspace, a nice bright light like this will allow you to see the edges. So let me see if it comes across on the camera. When I'm looking down, I can see where the edge is now. If I turn that light off, it's less defined. So if you can pick up a light like this, works out great. I was lucky, Elizabeth won it on some raffle with her turning group. Yeah, definitely getting dull there. Basically push that nib off in the center. Yeah, the light I'm talking about, Jimmy, is actually basically a spotlight. I've got a couple lights up above and such just to keep the area lit, but I've got the spotlight to actually be able to see where the edge of the bowl is, because the darkness of the bark versus the lightness of the wood really contrasts well. So you can, with the bright light, you're able to actually see that edge. Alright, so it's not clean cut, but I think the evenness is pretty good. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go sharpen the tool. We're going to take off 3/4 of an inch in progressive, probably about 3 or 4 passes. Then I'm going to go sharpen one more time and take it down for that final cut. It's going to be a really nice, slow, even cut. I'm trying to avoid, you can see these inside lines. That's because I adjusted a number of times, and we'll have the calipers out as we take this down for the first inch. Alright, so we're going to keep it around 1,000 RPM. If we go too much faster, these wings will start pulling away and we won't be able to get a clean cut. Alright, hopefully you can see what I'm talking about now. I'm only going down about 1 inch. And what I'm looking for is practicing this first inch. Alright. Right now that is as far out as I can test. That is very even, which is what I'm looking for. I want an even, consistent bowl thickness. It's important on pretty much every bowl, but especially a wet wood bowl, because this bowl is going to warp. If it's got thicker wood in any one area than another place, what's going to happen is that's going to add undue stress and actually crack the bowl. So we want warping, not cracking, when this thing fully dries. Using the bevel is really important when you're turning air. If you don't use that bevel, and when I'm controlling this tool right here, I am only moving, or I'm controlling the tip. The back is only moving as much as my front fingers can pull it. So this hand is doing no control in the back. It's just simply supporting the tool back there. Now, I'm pretty sure this cut, I started out and then basically lifted too much, so I'm pretty sure it's going to be thicker as we go towards the, and sure enough, yep, alright, so I need to straighten that out. So that means I'm going to start at a little bit steeper of an angle, and I'm going to come in and start hogging a little bit more material. Hogging is probably the wrong term. I'm going to be light and gentle, but I'm going to be taking more material from closer towards the center of the bowl. Alright, so I pretty much didn't take anything from the outer part of the bowl. Let's see if I made the right adjustment or enough of an adjustment. Alright, not quite enough. Still got to do a little more. Alright, after every cut I'm doing this check because I want to make sure I get that even thickness as close as possible. Because if I'm close when I get there, I can't get too far off for that last pass. Being a seriously uncooperative light today. I'm casting my own shadow in there. Try this. I think that might be the angle I need the light at. It's working well. And it's still going a little light on the inside, so I need to keep that bevel, or I need to keep that toe into the wood a little bit more. Alright, I'm liking that a little better, I think. That felt good. That time I went too far, so I need to take more at the edge. This will probably be the last pass before I go sharpen again. As you can see, I've lost a couple chunks of the bark. We'll see what we get when we're done, but may just be peeling the rest of that off. I'm out of frame? Oh, the bowl is. Thanks. Is that better, John? Alrighty, let's see where we're at. That is darn near perfect. So we're going to go put a fresh edge on. We're going to take our final pass, and then we'll be moving to this next ridge here. Sorry about that. Glad I check the chat every now and then. Alright, so I'm going to find the bevel by touching the inside just about where I want to be, or start my cut. That'll give me the angle I need to start at. Then I'm going to back up and actually start the cut in. Alright, that was a nice clean cut, and alright, I'm liking that. I'm going to bring you down and show you what you can get for that cut. Alright. Yeah, so if we take the light off, you can kind of see this cut is nice and clean. I don't want to touch that again with the tool, because if I do, what's going to wind up happening is there'll be additional flex in the bowl, which means that I won't get a smooth cut. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start taking this section down about an inch down into the bowl. Right here. I'm going to take that down about an inch. And when I get to the, right before I do the last pass, I'm going to find my outer bevel angle. I'm going to bring the tool in. So I'll find my outer bevel angle like this while the bowl's spinning. Then I'll bring it down here and we'll start pushing in. And hopefully we'll minimize or get the ridge between those two tool cuts as invisible as possible. We'll have to do some sanding just because the push cut into the bowl, it just simply isn't as clean. So you can see there's some shadow here, I hope. But you can see that's not super clean. You expect some of that, but we want to get as little as possible. Alright, I'll make sure everything's in frame now. Alright. Tool around, right around. All right, get going again. Okay, that's going to be my initial surface, and I can bring the caliper in and check the thickness wall, if it's consistent or not, the wall thickness. Alright, so, and a little fat in the center, but otherwise the ends are good. Alright. Because one of the other things that also is going to change the amount of flex in the bowl is as this thing is spinning, it's throwing water. I'll show you in a minute here, or probably when I'm done with the bowl, you'll actually see that there is a strip of water that has just been flung out of the bowl. Now I've got 5 or 4 more blanks with this stuff here. One of the nice things about maple is when it's this wet, I've got the end sealed. I'll leave this here probably until fall, and by fall I'll have a couple spalted bowl blanks, which the spalted maple is just really cool looking, seeing those black lines weave through the wood. Now one thing when I'm using the caliper is I'm trying to keep it so at least it's level as I go into the bowl. If I do like this sort of thing, I won't have any idea how thick it is. But I'm trying to keep it more or less resting on the tool rest so it's parallel. The other thing is when I'm applying any pressure, I'm applying pressure to the inside of the bowl, that tip, because the outside, that is a almost finished surface. I don't want to accidentally press into the wood and leave marks. Those marks won't sand out nearly as easily as removing material on the inside will remove the marks. And I'm trying to also keep these 2 points as parallel to the shape of the bowl. So you don't see me just kind of go straight in, you see me curve in, following the curve of the bowl. Okay, there's a little lip right there where I need to find my bevel when I go in, but otherwise it's very even thickness. Yeah, another nice thing about the light when you're actually hollowing the inside of the bowl is you can actually see the ridge that you're removing. And you want to be able to, when you start your cut, you want to follow that ridge in at the same thickness, because there's kind of a shadow that'll appear there. So it's another great use for that light, is it tells you how even your thickness is of the cut you're taking. So it's a good indicator whether you need to back off or be more aggressive in your cut. Now, something else that you may notice, probably not from your distance, but you can see there's some brown being leaked from the moisture of the bark into the white of the maple. Not a whole lot to do for that. What I'll probably do is let this thing dry for a couple hours before I actually do any sanding. Because I don't want that staining through the actual white of the maple. Yeah, I'm a little concerned. I think I wound up getting a little more aggressive as I went in, but yeah. Actually, no, the opposite. Yeah, a little less aggressive as I went in. Well, okie doke. Let's alright, that seemed to correct the issue. So I think we're good. Alright, I have 3/8 of an inch left. So at this point I can either think, do I want to take 3/8 inch for a final pass, or do I want to cut that in half and maybe then only have 3/16 of an inch to take on a final pass? Or I could even go a little heavy, and that way I've only got about a 1/16 or an 1/8 to take on that final pass. Or do I want to take 3 cuts? Right now the tool is nice and sharp still. I think I'll take 3 passes though. I'll take probably about an 1/8 at a time, and then that last cut right before it, I'll go put a fresh edge on. I always put that fresh edge on before I do that final cut. Doesn't mean I'm not going to check twice, though. I'm liking that. Do one more 1/8, and then we're going to do that final cut. It's getting disappointing. The tool got clogged up. Alright, let's see what we got here. Following the roundness of the bowl, I like it. Alright, we're going to sharpen. That's another thing. Once you start on the hollowing of the bowl, you want to do it in one fell swoop. You don't want to start your hollowing, go have lunch, come back. So you kind of want to judge right before you start on the hollowing. Do I want to eat first, or do I need to take a break? Because if you take a break, what's going to wind up happening is this drying is already going to start, or has been starting. So every second I spend not cutting, I am allowing moisture to escape and cause this bowl to do its warping. So we want to work not bleedingly or blazingly fast, but you do want to work fairly quickly. Otherwise, you'll wind up having that warping happen, and this transition line will become more obvious. All right, like I was saying before, I'm going to find the bevel on the most recently cut piece, then I'm going to back off to actually cut the outer piece, or to bring in that final cut. So I'm going to step down after I find the bevel angle I want. So how do I find the bevel angle? Alright, first I rest the heel on the wood, and I bring in until I see, and I doubt I have the resolution for it, but you might be able to see that little white spot at the tip. Those would just be the start of shavings on the tip. Once I see that, I know I'm at the right angle. I'll back out and try and keep everything positioned as parallel as possible. Alright, let's see how smooth it is. That is a pretty good transition. I'm happy with that. So I'm going to start all the way out at the outer part of the bowl, and I'm going to follow that in. Alright, it feels like I actually got a little thicker right there. Alright, I know you're not supposed to do this, but I know about where I've got. Now I could either screw things up royal and make a ton of sanding for myself, or I can try and do this with the tool. And I'm going to hope we don't warp too much. This is a little thicker than I was originally thinking, so I don't think we're going to get as much warping. The bowl itself is smaller, so this is a judgment call on whether you want to try touching it up with the tool, or if you want to just figure you're going to sand it. Alright, unsurprisingly I did add some tool marks. Tool marks sand fairly cleanly. It's easier to, in my opinion, usually it's easier to risk the extra tool marks so you don't have so much wood to remove with sanding, because sanding consistently is more difficult. Alright, where did I go with the calipers? There we go. I'm going to follow that down. Alright, that's not too bad. Alright, that's definitely sandable once it dries out. Alright, Alright, I've got two options. One, I can go a little bit further, not quite an inch, to bring this in, which will get me to as far as I can measure. Or I can just try and take the whole thing. At this point, the warping that's going to happen from the forces of the spinning aren't going to affect this intersection a whole lot. So I think I'm going to, just for expediency, and because I think it'll still work without causing any major issues, I'm just going to start going all the way in. Alright, so how do I get this to follow the contour of the bowl if I can't use calipers anymore? This is more or less just kind of a hit or miss thing. I'm going to feel this. I'm going to feel as far as I can. I think I'm good. Maybe I know I've got a ridge there from tools, but otherwise I like the curve of that bottom. So it's just by feel once you can't actually get a tool in there on how close are you going to actually be. So I'm still going to do that feeling every couple cuts as I bring this down, but I'm not going to pull out the calipers anymore just for that last, I don't know, it's probably not even 3/4 of an inch. think I want to probably make this slightly steeper here. That's kind of cool. Looks like we do have a little bit of figure in the wood, but not a whole lot. But alright, but we need to, right about here, this circle needs to go in some. Otherwise, I think we're good on the shape. Really need to smooth out my transition on the angle there, but it's not, just keep leaving a ridge right there. Now it looks like we've got a bar conclusion there. That tells me I'm going to be sharpening the tool a little bit more, because anytime you have bark, there is probably grit and dirt that got into it. Alright, I'm getting very far away from the tool rest. I can't really move the tool rest this direction because I'm going to then start hitting the rim of the bowl. But what I can do is turn it. Now that I've moved this though, or moved the angle of this thing, I probably should have just moved the actual banjo instead. I'm probably not centered again. So I'm going to have to probably adjust. Thankfully, I've left myself a little bit of space there. Alright, due to that bar conclusion, I'm going to change strategy a little bit. Instead of going all the way in, I'm going to stop right after that bar conclusion when I do my final pass, because that is going to dull the tool, and that last little bit isn't going to be nearly as nice. And that's probably the hardest spot to actually get a good clean cut as it is. No reason to make our lives harder by having a dull tool after that part. So I've probably got two more cuts. Go sharpen, bring it into the bar conclusion, go sharpen, and finish that cut up. And then we'll be done hollowing the bowl. The next steps after that will be turning it around and removing all the material on the foot and shaping the foot. Good feel. Still liking the angle and the smoothness of that. I'm good. I'm going to go sharpen the tool and we will do that final pass up to the bar conclusion. Again, I'm going to find that bevel based on my last cut, move the tool back, and then we'll move in from there for that final cut. I'm pretty sure, yep, okay, I am mostly through the bar conclusion. There's just a hair left. Okay, I don't have a very good transition, that'll sand out, but I got a couple tool marks from the vibration, but I think we'll be okay. So I'm going to go sharpen again, just so we can get that bottom nice and clean. In fact, I might take 2 or 3 passes here. I've been noticing just that because of the wetness, I keep pulling that fiber, the kind of the layer of the tree out each time I go through there. So I want to cut that, not pull it. Otherwise there's going to be a lot more sanding, and like anything else in woodworking, sanding's not a whole lot of fun. Alright, take a couple passes, make him clean. Alright. Looks like I may have gotten just a hair of tear out in that. Oh well. Nothing to be done for it now. It'll just mean more sanding. Alright. So, not bad so far. Liking this bowl. Hopefully family I'm making it for will like it too. You weren't here from the start. Basically, my family and I, we were getting some ice cream the other night, and there was someone right across the street from the ice cream place. They were cutting down a tree, or had a tree down on the ground. I asked if I could have a couple trunks of it, and they were gracious enough to let me. So one of the rules I do as a wood turner is if I ever get free wood from you, the odds are I'll also make you something with it. The rest of it I make stuff for myself or stuff to sell with. But all right, so let's I need a wrench. Alright, that was pretty handy. So, this is where we're at right now. You can see, as I was telling you, don't feel like you're losing much of the bowl just by you're not having a deeper bowl, but I think you wind up with a much nicer shape if you stop worrying about the foot. Don't try to be greedy and get as much as you can. Get as much as is going to look good. So right here is where my glue line is, so I need to break that. I'll show you how to do that in a second. All right. Now, it's best not to do this on your lathe bedways, but I think if I do it right here, where the support is, it's probably not as big of a deal. Looks like you can't see that. There we go. All right, so you got a good sized belly. This works out perfect. I'm going to bring it right up to the wood. What we're trying to do is break the glue joint there. Unfortunately, I went more into the wood than the glue, so there we go. A couple good thwacks and just pulls right off. So the glue block, I'm going to clean this up first. What I'm going to do is bring the tailstock up, and we're going to press the bowl onto it like this, with the tailstock being holding that side. Now you got a nice sharp tool, and you're going to be cutting super glue. Super glue is brittle and will dull the tool. So, just because we sharpened just a few minutes ago, doesn't mean we aren't going to sharpen again after we get the glue off. So I'm going to get the glue off the block. I'm going to bring the bowl up with the tailstock. I'm going to get the glue off the bowl. Then I'm going to go sharpen. And the reason we want to be really sharp when we're doing this part is we're only using a friction drive. I'm going to put some leather in here and some paper towel. And then we're just going to be pressing up with the tailstock, but not with a lot of pressure, because we don't want to damage what we have. So one of the things that I'm going to do here is, earlier I added a just kind of a narrow support. This time I'm going to add a little bit of rounding on this side overall, so that way we've got non-sharp corners to press into the bowl, because we don't want sharpness, because that'll leave marks in the bowl, and marks mean more sanding. So alright, just a mental note, you probably don't want to run your thumb or whatever along that while it's slowing down, because if you left any glue, you'll just shred your skin. Luckily, I took enough off that I didn't do that. So don't be like me, at least don't take stupid chances. Alright, so If you're like me and you have an old leather jacket that you took apart laying around, that works out great. Otherwise, I suppose you could talk to Shannon Rogers and find out where you got horse butt. Just want to lay a paper towel in there. Where this is tanned leather, I want to not stain the wood. That's what the paper towel is for, especially with it being wet. That would be a big risk. Where'd you go? Here you are. All right. So, we're going to try to center this. Remember the divot we put in with the tool to center this? Well, that divot is still center, so that's what I'm aiming for when I come up. I'm actually going to give myself a 1/4 inch or so. Alright, so in theory that should be centered. In reality it's probably not. Everyone wants to live in theory because everything works. That's the saying, I think. Okay, what I'm doing is I'm trying to give myself maybe 1/8 of an inch away from the wood. I'm going to put my fingernail right up to the wood, and as I spin this, whoa, I'm going to find out I was not centered at all. Alright, so I'm going to find the spot that's closest to the wood, or closest to the tool rest. I'm going to back this out, and I'm going to adjust it to where I think it might be centered. I put my fingernail against the wood, see how it spins. I'm still off probably by a skinny 1/8 of an inch. So let's see if we can do one more adjustment. Alright, I'm pretty happy with that. Now, the closer we can get this to centered, the better, because when we come up here to the actual bowl, or the bottom of the bowl, right now we're just focusing on turning this big chunk left on the bottom off. But when we get up to the actual bowl, we need to blend that. And blending means we get as close with the tool as possible, that maybe one side is going to not be, or is going to actually match. And then we're going to pull the tool away, and we're going to have to sand the rest to blend it. But the closer we are, the less sanding we'll have to do. Now, one of the other things is when you're using a friction drive like this, do not actually try to go really fast. Again, we're going to turn the lathe speed all the way down. Every time we adjust axes, we turn the lathe speed all the way down, and then we're going to bring the lathe speed up. But with a friction drive like this, I would never go more than maybe 800 on the outside. Typically you want to probably go 600 or so. Since we got a lot of material to remove, I'm going to start probably at 800. But first I'm going to remove the glue, as I said earlier. Then I'm going to probably go to 800 so we can remove much of the area here. Once we've got that removed, we'll slow it back down, and if it feels like it needs it, we'll make the foot, or we'll make the transition, make the foot, and then we're going to hollow the foot a little bit. But there's going to be a nib supporting that the whole duration. At the end, what we'll do is we'll take a chisel, remove that nib, and then sand that smooth. Alright, helmet or face shield. I'm going to start this out nice and slow. Okay, we're right at 800 right now. There's no shaking, but overall the bowl is fairly light, so that makes sense. I'm going to clean up the glue and then sharpen the tool. Okay, one thing I probably did wrong here is I should not have been taking such large shavings. I mean, these are 1/2 inch wide. Should have been taking much smaller. Again, this is just a friction drive. It's not really well supported. I'm going to sharpen and be right back. Alright, more comments? So I'm going to only take like maybe a 1/4 inch at a time when I cut into this. I don't want to take too much material and add too much pressure or stress. That'll just make life more difficult because we'll knock off axis again and have to clean up a lot more. Now I'm leaving a really tall foot right now. I will go shallower, but right now I'm just trying to focus on removing material, not actually get the shape. Alright, so I've removed quite a bit of material. I'm going to do a little bit more. And then I'm going to actually figure out how wide am I going to make the foot of the bowl. The wider the foot, the less it's going to look ornamental and the more it's going to look functional. since this is a live edge bowl, I want this to look more ornamental. So I'm going to go smaller for the foot rather than larger. So if you look at this, this is probably, I would say, 2/5 the width of the bowl, which is pretty large for an ornamental style bowl. So I'm going to bring this in, make it maybe about 1/4 or maybe even a little less. Now I'm probably 1/4 inch thick for the thickness of the bowl walls. So it'll be a little hefty for ornamental, but I think overall that needed to happen to keep any of the bark on. So I think the bark is in close enough to good enough shape that I will leave the rest of the bark on it. Alright, if you remember earlier we had that bark inclusion. Well, here it is. It was a branch that was coming out. I saw that knot on the bottom of the bowl. I'm actually surprised how far in it wound up going into the tree here. So I probably should have figured on that, the bark inclusion, or at least the knot. So anyway, I think it adds a little bit of character to the bowl based on when you do have branches that grow out, you get kind of a pulsy look, or a figure, waviness through the wood, which is usually fairly attractive. So, okay, I think that's as narrow as I want to go right now. Now I want to work on choosing how large of a foot I'm going to put on here. So I'm going to start bringing these edges, or I'm going to do a push cut in until I find the width that I want for the foot. Alright, so if we look, you can see actually, as far as the blending that's going to have to happen, I mean, we are, a 64th of an inch maybe. So we are doing really well for how square this bowl laid up here. So that won't be a whole lot of sanding. I'll probably need to start at 120. I prefer to start at 220 when I'm doing the outside of the bowl, but 120 it is, not a big deal. So, alright, I'm going to just keep shrinking this down until I get it to the point that I like for the foot. And I'll stop at that point and probably mention some more stuff since I'm so talkative. Alright, now I've got the that knot actually in the foot. I don't know. I don't dislike it. I'm not super happy about it, but we'll leave it there. I think that's probably a good size. That's probably close to about 1/5 of the bowl width. So from wing to wing, it's probably about 1/5 of the actual size of the bowl, which I think is kind of nice looking. So what I'm going to try and do is maybe like a little bit of a shear scrape to smooth this out, rather than even trying to do the pull cut through it, because a pull cut you can't really get to an edge like that. So I'm just going to try a shear scrape, see if we can clean that up, maybe make it a little bit less work in the future for sanding. So before I shear scrape, I'm going to go put a fresh edge on. Alright, that actually worked out really well. I think we can start sanding at 220 now. So, alright, so the rest of the foot. I really love this tool, however, it doesn't do well in narrow confines. So, I'm going to pull out, it's a traditional grind, as opposed to, well, Jameson calls it a Jameson grind. I can't tell the difference between Jameson and Ellsworth, but so anyway, I'm going to go put a fresh edge on this, and we'll start hogging out material, pick the actual depth we're going to do for the foot, and then we'll start some hollowing on that foot. All right. I want to get the tool rest in here a little bit better. Fortunately, all the wet and grime makes moving the tool rest very difficult. Sure, I'm gonna whack the. All right. Okay, I do a push cut through the layers of the wood while I'm removing material from the nub. Once I get that in there fairly tight, I'm going to then go into the push cut like I'm hollowing a bowl when I actually set the hollow of the foot. It's kind of weird. I'm getting some long grain chip out when I'm doing this, and that's because that branch is coming in almost straight through my actual nib on the end here. I think we're okay. I got to go a little bit further and then we'll come in the other direction. Alright, so we can see that knot right there. I'm going to make it a little more challenging. So, I think I'm going to start with a couple of cuts to bring the foot a little bit shorter. Hey, thanks. Thanks, Jimmy. Having a hard time getting the bevel. I think I keep getting kicked out by some of that hard wood in the knot. Alright, I've got a little bit of a hollow now. I'm pretty sure that the branch wood from the knot is kicking me out like that, but I think that's not too unpleasant looking. So, now it's a game of chicken. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little off the support, then I'm going to come in and try and clean up the curve of the bottom. Take a little off the nib, come in, keep doing that, and at some point I'm going to have to try chicken or have the bowl fly off unsupported. So now, one of the things Lyle Jamieson likes is to actually see a little bit of some cuts down on the bottom, so you can actually see that the bottom was turned, which, to tell the truth, I think it's kind of artificial for him, because he usually will just chisel off the nib, which means it wasn't entirely turned, and then sand it. So I am going to try going slightly narrower, and then I'm going to probably put 1 or 2 rings right on the bottom there, just for some decoration to show that it was turned down here. So what this is just a really small bowl gouge that will let me get in there a little bit tighter. Right now, I don't know, I've probably got a slightly over a 1/4 inch kind of curve there, due to that's as narrow as that other bowl gouge can get. I'm going to go put a sharp edge on this one, put a couple decorations, and then we'll turn the speed down and I'll be ready to catch it if it flies off, and I'll be able to clean it up a little bit more. All right, let's try decorations. How does look? All right, they look good. All right, now we're getting into the part where I'm just trying to get this down small enough so it breaks off nice and easy and there's very little sanding. All right, we're gonna call chicken now. So what you can see there, that shouldn't be too much work to sand once I cut them off. All right. Now it's good to have two sets of chisels. One that you're going to actually keep sharp, and one that's fairly blunt, which is for the smashing of things and opening paint cans if you're sacrilegious. Alright, there is our bowl. Get this guy out of here. There we go. Now, just so you can see, the reason that we have that the paper towel between the leather, so you can see there's some wet rings. It's because the wood is so wet, and you can see there's a little bit of tan there, and it got into the, so that's why we got the paper towel. All right, good sharp chisel. I'm going to break this guy north of the bottom of the bowl. You can bring the chisel in, keep them sharp, keep them going away from you. And shave off just little shavings. Alright, and our bowl sits nice and flat. Don't worry, I'm coming back. Alright, sanding is next. Go ahead and get that off. Now for sanding, you got two ways, well, you got a bunch of ways of doing it. The way I'm going to do it today is I'm going to put a Jacob chuck here and use a sanding disc with that. Alright, I will use a Jacob's chuck when I find it. There it is. Alright. Let's jam him in there. Looks like Elizabeth was working on a pen recently. We got the pen reamer. Alright, I think for the inside I'm going to start with 220 or 120 just to get that one that really bad ring out of there. And after that we'll switch to 220. Alright, where are you? 120, 80, 320. And I'm going to grab a dust mask. I've had a bit of allergies this last week and really don't need to screw up my sinuses and chest anymore. All right.
That's a little bit larger of a bump than I thought it was, so I'm going to skip up to 80 real quick, get that removed, and I think how wet it is, I may only do that and give it a couple hours. So.
You know what, guys? I think I need to let this dry, because that is just clogging up the even the Abernet type of sanding thing. So I think we'll call it done for here right now. I'll sand this up probably later this afternoon after it's had a chance to do some drying, at least on the surface, and then I'll put up some pictures on Instagram. So thanks for the guys that stuck around and watched. I don't know if I'm going to be doing this more often or just regular YouTube videos, so I'll let you guys, I guess you guys will find out one way or the other. But just right now I haven't had much time to edit videos, so I figured this would be kind of a cool way to let people see some of the stuff happening in the shop. So, well, thanks again for watching, guys. I'm going to be logging off. Take care.